employers. The traditional workplace with a 9 to 5 schedule is fast becoming a thing of the past. Workplace flexibility has become table stakes for attracting and retaining employees. The workplace flexibility movement began years ago when many organizations launched talent initiatives to accommodate working mothers. Overtime flexibility options mushroomed from compressed work weeks to job sharing, telecommuting to adjusted schedules, career hiatuses and career re-entry. From its birth, as an employee entitlement, workplace flexibility has grown to become a requirement for organizations that want to make the most of its people productivity. This can be attributed to several reasons: technological advances, increase in global competition, dual income households, and the varying needs of different generations in the workplace, single parent families, and sustainability. Changes all around us, including economic factors, are forcing organizations to reevaluate the way they do business and develop alternative approaches to work. Time is indeed the new currency, and the demands on each one of the generations represented in today's workforce are such that we're all in need of the time we didn't have before. Organizations that recognize the value of using flexible work arrangements and to give back their employees on a schedule that benefits the employer and the employee will be the organizations to win in the new economy. It's a great pleasure to invite and welcome the panelists for today. Mr. Piyush Sinha is the General Manager from Corporate Planning and Business Management in NEC Technologies. We welcome you. Dr. Neera Kumar is a gender intelligence expert. We welcome you. Mr. Rashu Malhotra, the head of Jabong.com. Welcome. I'll take this opportunity to invite Piyush Sinha to share his practices of the organization that he leads and his experience in the subject of discussion today. Through the first half of the day, we've heard from various organizations how they make efforts to make women in their organizations comfortable. Just a brief about Piyush. He's an engineer and an MBA from the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. He started his career with Beehive Systems and was instrumental in setting up their entire South India operations. He then moved on to join HCL Technologies Limited, worked for their joint venture company with NEC Corporation Japan for about 9 years, handling a variety of roles in the company, including an HR function as an additional responsibility. He helped imbibe the employees first, customer second philosophy and institutionalize the employee engagement model. He joined NEC Technologies India Limited in April 2013 and heads the corporate planning and people strategy for the company. He believes in the concept of people as the real assets of the company and leads a highly engaged team of more than 100 people.
Thank you, Priyanka, and thank you, IILM, for having me here. And I think in the first half, most of you went through that why diversity is becoming a business imperative. And especially if you look at the IT services part of the business, which I represent, we are the bulk manpower requirers of the country. We hire people in thousands. And why it's becoming a business imperative, we say that there is no labor shortage in India. But trust me, there's a huge talent shortage. And there's a huge gap between what companies require and what is coming out of the campuses in the countries throughout. So if you look at the kind of analysis that we do when we hire from the top campuses like IILM, we see there's a huge gap in terms of the quality of people coming if we bracket them into 5 years different brackets. And it's only mainly because not that the faculty is getting deteriorated or the students are not very engaged or they are not spending enough time. It is basically because India as a country, the corporate side and the university side have continued to function in two parallel lines. And I think it is the imperatives of institutes like IILM, which is amalgamating the two. Instead of two parallel lines, make it intersect with each other at multiple points through interventions like these, which will help in narrowing this gap in terms versus the talent versus the requirement. So if you look at large companies, IT companies today, they recruit about more than 20,000 people in a year. And trust me, the selection ratio is 2%. So for recruiting 20,000 people in a year, I'll have to consider 1 million people in a particular year. And trust me, it's a drain on the HR department when you have to see through 1 million people, 10 lakh people, to actually shortlist the candidates who would come through to our companies. And that's why we say that gender diversity plays a very important role. There's a lot of talent which is untapped, which is sitting in the homes, but is well qualified, is pretty talented, which suits our need. So as a baseline, we cannot ignore 50% of the working population or the total population. And gender diversity is no longer a choice. It's an imperative for companies like us, which are manpower driven. And we cannot ignore this 50% of the population. And while gender diversity, you deliberate it in the morning. If you have a problem and all of the people are looking in one direction, when the solution lies in some other direction, just because you do not have diversity in your team, is a catastrophe. So it's a necessity to have, though they're still not, I think Neeru and Ashu probably can validate that, but we haven't yet come across a causal relationship between women in the top management and the performance of the companies. Of course, when you look at studies, they do mention that companies which are doing well have a higher percentage of women at the top. But there's no direct causal relationship yet. What happens if I remove this woman? Will I continue to have those business performance, or will I degrade? But based on our experience, we can definitely say that they bring a very different perspective onto the table. They bring in a very different thought process where most of the people, we cannot look into that direction. And so there is a difference of opinion, but definitely we can't deny the fact that today women are imperative if you have to succeed in your business. Many of the studies, they also show that there is a better attrition control, there is a better employee engagement of the female population of the company. They are more committed. And our studies also, internally, if we do that, that reflects in that. Though if you look at the pure attrition numbers, probably the percentage of attrition from females would match the female population in the company. But if you look at the reasons, when we go a step deeper and deliberate on what are the reasons why are my people leaving. So if 8 out of 10 males are leaving because of better opportunities, which essentially means better salaries, but out of 5 out of 10 women are leaving because of constraints of marriage, which mainly results in relocation. The husband is working in some other city and she has to join her husband post-marriage. So she would leave the company. Or you will have childbirth as one of the reasons. So there's nobody to take care of the child at home. So they would leave that. And about 50% of the women, especially at a middle level, in our company's case, they would leave because of these particular instances about 4 years ago. And it made us relook at our gender intelligence, our gender strategies. How much are we doing actually for the population in the company, which actually requires a very different approach, a very different mindset, and a very different approach to handle in the times of their need. So if you look at flexibility, when we talk about, and Priyanka mentioned in that we started off with a joint venture with HCL, and HCL imbibed a very successful philosophy of employee first, customer second. It soon became, when we started in 2005, that's when HCL imbibed this philosophy. And it led to a substantial decline in their employee turnover. It led to a substantial increase in the employee engagement scores of the company. And what essentially it meant that it was no longer only a sales tool. So many of the companies like us, we do a lot of things which is sales driven. But it was no longer sales, it was actually, we were saying that my employees first and my customers is second. And it also went to an extent where, and it started off that we are into the services business. So these are employees are the people who are actually delivering services to the customer, and they are delivering value to the customer. So if I keep my employees happy, they will keep my customers happy. A very simple premise, but very difficult to implement. It took us about 3 years to change the mindset of the people, saying that, okay, business is important, but what is important is the people. If we are able to retain the right set of people, the cost of attrition is huge. More than 200% is what the cost is of the salary of a particular employee who is leaving. To replace him, find the right resource, train the right resource, make him productive, we'll spend about 200% of his salary in doing that. So it's a business sense in retaining the people, keeping the employees engaged. And we also moved from employee satisfaction to actually employee engagement. The satisfaction in our experience have been very transient. And people can be satisfied one day and can become dissatisfied the other day. So it's very important to have a concept of employee engagement where we're not talking about just employee satisfaction, but you're talking about engagement, where he's engaged with the company, he's motivated, and what he's essentially doing, he is your word of mouth publicity for your company, both internally and externally. He is spreading the positive vibes within the company. So the impact that this engaged employee is creating is far beyond a satisfied employee. Also, we spoke about a lot of flexibility. So many of the companies, they do have today very flexible policies, processes. We are no different. But what we have adopted, I don't know how we have recently adopted this policy or this framework at least, or a mindset, where we are saying that there is a baseline which is applicable to all female employees who, and it could have maternity leaves, it could have flexible working arrangements, it could have a fresh facility or a daycare center partnership where you can use technology, you can have IP cameras, you can have mobile applications. So even during a meeting, a mother can see what's happening with the child at the daycare center. So these are some of the baseline activities that we continue to do. We continue to invest in as an employer. But we also started on an initiative which is more as a mindset and as an approach and driven from a senior management, top down, is to have a special privilege for the special employees. And these special employees are the engaged ones, the high performers, performance driven, where we have a clear-cut ROI or a return on investment, that if I do something special for them today, they will continue to be engaged with the company. It's based on, in the earlier session we talked case-to-case basis, I think Sujay talked about that. And these cases are such which have proven their commitment to the company. And that's when we go the extra mile to support them. And some of the instances, like one of the females in my team itself, she had a C-section delivery on one day in the evening. Next day morning, she's responding to the mails on her phone. And it's not easy if you ask specifically the mothers who have undergone that process. It's pretty difficult. But these are the people who are committed, who know that work is also important, where my personal life is important. And we started doing that reduced number of hours, supporting them, giving them special cab services to go back early, have a reduced number of hours, come in the morning, go back early, those kind of aspects. Work from home in certain days when the maid is not available or when there is no support at home. You can take a 2-3 days, even a week work from home and adjust to those circumstances. And extended maternity leave started coming into the picture for these people, because they, as it is during the maternity leave also, they are responding, they are working, they are trying to contribute to the organization. So why not extend their maternity leave for a little and help them do that. Plus training and counseling once they comes back becomes very important. That's where I think Neeru and her team and companies like them, they play a very important role in not only making the companies aware about gender diversity, but also helping these people who are coming back from a long leave or a leave of absence from the company to come back into the frame of mind. Because the business hasn't stopped while you were away. But how do you come back, reclaim your position, and re-entry is more difficult today than going on maternity leave or going on a leave. Because that's the biggest challenge, and that's where companies have to do a lot from that perspective to assimilate these resources back, give them what they were handling before, and then continue to motivate the team which was handling in our absence. And that's another aspect of the business. While we are looking at flexible policies for one set of the population, there's another set who has tried hard, gone that extra mile, and supported during that leave of absence in maintaining the business. So how do you have a career path defined for them? How do you credit them with what they have done during this period also plays a very important role. We also started doing some level of family and a spouse level interaction programs with these women who were going on a long leaves in those, because we believe that only as an organization we will not be able to achieve the goal of re-entry of these women into the workplace, but also it will help a lot if the personal and the professional worlds are stitched together, and both of them, instead of conflicting with each other, work in tandem and support each other in enabling that particular perspective. And but it has a whole lot of different challenges, and it's a different ball game. We are running short on time, but some of the thoughts and some of the challenges that we face, and we see also in today's corporate world in India, there is a scarcity of women at senior levels, which is there is no doubt about it, and that's why you see that many of the women are directors in 4 or 5 different firms, because there is a scarcity of women. And how much value would they be able to bring if they are not able to do justice to one organization, because they have to participate in about 4 or 5 different organizations. Because of the new guidelines that also came in, that there has to be a woman director in your board dictated by SEBI. So I think about 60% of the organizations are yet to comply. But these are challenges, and the scarcity is also because the women in India, they started joining the organization and the corporate world pretty late. And you do not have a very a large population of senior women people in the corporate world who can take up these senior roles. And majority of the times we have seen that the age of early 30s and the mid 30s is where the professional demand or the promotions in the organization from a medium level or a middle level to a senior level is happening. But that's also the time when a woman faces the personal commitment the most. In terms of child, in terms of home, in terms of family, the pressure from the home front is excessive during that time, which forces many of the women to leave the organizations and continue to focus on their personal life. And that's when organizations like us have to play a very important role in helping the women of those times. And if you look at, there's a huge difference in the percentage of number of women at middle level and number of women at the senior level in terms of percentage. And it's only because during that critical period, the organizations have not been sensitive to support the women. So also if you look at how passionate a company is about gender diversity, whether it's only the recruitment team which is focusing at maintaining the gender balance, or it is the management will and people at all levels are focusing on maintaining a gender diversity. So that's important to have that. We also have to solve, as I mentioned, the problem of double burden, the personal and the professional worlds, how we can integrate the two, strike a right balance between the two, and re-entry. Plus, most importantly, if you look at the return on investment, if the companies are investing into these practices, what are the returns on these investments, and how do we leverage the gender diversity to make it a business case and then drive the field forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Piyush. It was interesting to know how well you related to the theme and the special effort that your organization makes to make women in the workplace more comfortable and unleash their true potential. Even the sensitivity that you shared and the details, it just shows how much thought has gone in from the organization's perspective to understand 50% of the workforce that you are looking to leverage. The next guest for the afternoon that I would like to invite is Dr. Neera Kumar, just sharing a brief introduction about her. Dr. Neera Kumar has been powerfully impacting and transforming lives through a unique blend of expertise in modern medicine, psychology, coaching skills, and energy-based healing. She is a medical doctor, a psychologist, Mars Venus coach, pranic healer, Reiki grandmaster, teacher, and hypnotherapist. After 20 years of clinical practice, she felt an intense need to help people even more deeply in personal and professional fronts. Dr. Neera is now a senior associate with Barbara Annis and Associates. She's also working with Mars Venus. She's conducted several workshops for the corporates like IBM, American Express, and Walmart, to name a few. We welcome you.
So good afternoon, everybody. We have too little a time to talk about too important a subject. So let's get into action immediately. I would like you to make pairs, two people each, and call one A and one B. Can we do that, please? Left arm like this, with the palm facing outwards. The A's, all the A's face out. Your left arm with the palm facing outwards. Now put your right arm over it. Both the palms should be facing each other. Intertwine your fingers. Do this and this. Now the B's, point out to their fingers one by one from this much of a distance and ask them to lift various fingers. The B's will ask them. From a distance, don't touch this much distance. Ask them to touch various fingers. Don't touch from a distance, this much distance. Okay. Was that tough? How many found it difficult? How many found it easy? Okay, a few. But how surprising is that? It's our own hand, our own brain, our own body, and we're just not able to lift up that finger. This clearly shows that the brain has two parts, the right and the left, two hemispheres, which have nerve pathways running down on one, and if we do all that juggling and mixing, the brain gets confused. So the two hemispheres of the brain are the logical and the creative. Both have different functions. One is logical and the other is creative. They also represent the masculine and the feminine energies. Research shows that men use more of the logical side and women use more of the creative side. So if you measure a group of men with factual thinking or intuitive thinking, the bell curve shows that the peak of factual thinking is in men. And the peak of intuitive thinking is in women. Of course, there's an overlap, but I think we will all agree that for business success today, it's a mix of creative and logical thinking which is required. And my two panelists here would completely agree with that it's a mix of both that is required. And thus is the importance of having a balanced team of men and women both working in every dimension. So a great example of that is IKEA. How many of you have heard of IKEA? Okay. So IKEA, when it began, and in the early 1970s, I had a personal experience of it because I visited, my father was doing business with IKEA, and I visited IKEA in the 1970s. And at that time, IKEA was just a catalogue, where people would order from catalogues, and they would get these cardboard boxes where they could easily assemble whatever furniture was to be there, with very good instructions. Until the first store in America was opened up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and there were two women there who said, majority of the buyers are women, and women are not going to buy just out of looking of catalogs. Women like to get the look and feel of it completely. And then IKEA started having the stores where they had, if I was to live in it, how would it look like? So they have the drawing rooms, the bedrooms, all demonstrated the models very nicely with all the wall arts and the cushions and everything in place. And then the IKEA sales shot up like anything. So this is a perfect example of how men and women, when they blend together, the result is definitely much more superior. So what is gender intelligence? It is an awareness of the intrinsic nature of men and women beyond the physical and cultural. It is an understanding of and appreciation of our differences. It is not assuming we are all alike and tolerating those differences when they appear. So I was doing a workshop at SAP, and after I had explained the brain differences, the guys were looking kind of gloomy and they were just looking like that. And I said, what happened? And they said, well, if nature has made us like that, I guess there's nothing we can do about it. And I said, no, guys, that's not where we want to be. This is an understanding of how men and women actually complement each other, and it's an advantage to both. So this is a cute slide. Can you make out what that means? That a woman's brain never rests. Sometimes a woman will get up in the morning and say, I was thinking about this problem the whole night. And then you ask her, so you didn't sleep? She says, yeah, I slept, but I was still thinking about it. How many women in the room relate to that? Great. And men, even when they're awake and they're turning the TV channels like a zombie, and you ask them what you're thinking, and they say nothing. And the woman says, how can you possibly be thinking nothing? You must be thinking something. He says, no, honestly, nothing. And then she says, you don't want to tell me, we don't share a good relationship. And then the poor guy has to make up something and say, okay, that's what I was thinking. How many men in the room relate to that? And it's a complete surprise for the women to know that men can actually think nothing. But we're talking about at rest, not all the time. So now it is scientifically completely proved. This is a brain-based research done about how we perceive, how we solve problems, how we communicate, and how we live. It's a research which is now totally substantiated across the world that men and women have different wiring. They have different brains, they make decisions differently, they problem solve differently, they communicate differently, and they have different leadership styles. Okay, so building upon what Piyush was talking, but throwing a slightly different light to it, there are a few myths. Myth number one, women can't survive in business. So I still see in my workshops that, and I conduct about 3 to 4 workshops in a week, and men will still say that some tasks are very hard for women, and that's why they're not there. So let's look at this. Men point to the 1 or 2 women in executive positions as proof that even though 60% of their graduating class were women, and more than 50% of middle management are women, only a few are competitive to make it to the top. Is that true? Research shows something else. Research shows 82% desired to be with people they respect, 87% wanted freedom to be themselves at work, 64% didn't receive recognition for their unique strengths, only 6% found the work too demanding. So that's an eye-opener. Myth number 2. Women are leaving because of work-life issues. At exit interviews, women will often say that. My baby is small, my family needs me, and I'm leaving. And that may be just because she doesn't want to burn her bridges. Is that the real reason? Maybe not. Post-exit interviews with 2,400 women who left corporate executive positions disclosed the top 5 reasons for their departure. The real reasons. Not valued in workplace is the top one. Feeling excluded from teams. Next, male-dominated work environment. Lack of opportunity for advancement. Work-life issues is the last one. Because women these days are very, very ambitious. And Indian women are particularly ambitious. So let's look at this slide and then I'll tell you a bit more about that. I'm going to keep quiet for a moment and I'm going to ask you to understand this slide. Can anyone explain it to me? Anybody? Would anyone like to try? Yeah. Okay, so what it really means, the bigger circle represents the flexi hours and the policies and the hiring, and the smaller circle represents the number of women in the senior management positions. Now what this shows is that the Nordic countries started having these flexi hours and these policies way back in the early 1980s. Has this resulted in more women in the senior management positions? No. And why is that? So does that mean that policies alone and hiring alone is not going to do it? Yes. So Asia Pacific, if we look at that, has relatively low practices even now, but the women have risen. And if we now relate it to the previous two slides, it indicates that women are leaving workplace not because of work-life issues, not predominantly because of work-life issues or because they find the work too hard, but because they're still not feeling included in the workplace. So this is not a blame game to anyone. And I often say that men today have a perfectly good intention of collaborating. And for them it's a huge change, because you see the corporate world, the business world has been predominantly male for such a long time. Suddenly to have that many women coming on board and to be realizing the benefits and the advantages of having these women, it's a big task. Anybody who has to step out of their comfort zone, it takes a while, it takes a time, and everybody, the individual, the society, the organization at every level has to contribute in the blending of the male and female strengths. So Asia Pacific, coming back to Asia Pacific, I was recently doing a workshop for the global leaders of young foods, and what we brought out there was that if there is a group of people who are really disadvantaged or a minority, what is the outcome really? Can you tell me what is the outcome when there's a group of people who's really disadvantaged or a minority? So there can be three outcomes. One is they can be simply quiet and they can go underground, or they can be very defensive and aggressive, or they can be on a hard drive. Indian women have had many challenges, right from female feticide to education, to the girl child not being given enough food, to bride burning, to dowry, to all these things. Indian women have had their own unique challenges. And what has happened is that they are now on the hard drive to prove themselves that they are a force in themselves. If this force, if this energy of the hard drive is channelized by the organization, Indian women can contribute hugely. And if you see the numbers 23, 24, 18, it's more or less the same all over the world, but India's Asia Pacific number is still as high as those who began ages back. Seizing the competitive advantage. The 5 advantages of a gender intelligent organization: improved decision making and innovativeness, responsiveness to customers and markets, balanced leadership, minimized risks and costs. And here I'd like to say that this is a huge concern of organizations today, because Novartis just paid close to $250 million in a discrimination case. China had its first discrimination case where a woman won, and there are these which are still dealing with it. So we're not talking about sexual harassment, we're talking about discrimination. And unfortunately, discrimination still does exist. There are still areas where women are paid less for the same job. Though it's changing, and it's changing very fast, but there are still areas. Superior financial performance. Now, here Piyush, I think you'll find this interesting, that it has been substantiated. And here are a 19-year study of 215 Fortune 500 companies showed strong correlation between a better balance of men and women in leadership positions and high profitability. The 25 best firms for women outperformed the industry medians on all 3 measures of profitability. 34% higher profit margin, 18% higher asset value, 69% higher stockholder equity. The 10 firms with the very best balance of men and women showed greater profit results than the firms that were merely very good. And here's a visual representation of that. So, goes to show definitely a blend. We're not saying there should be more women, but we are saying that men and women, the brains of men and women are different. When put together, the outcome is much more superior. So, as a closing, I would say that the message to all the women here is, the journey is yet there, there's a distance to walk, but are we going to wait till everything is in order, or are we going to be determined to move ahead anyway? The message to men is, it's no longer a good thing to do, but it's an imperative. It's a business imperative. It is also an imperative for the individual, because the male and female energy, when it comes together, it's an advantage to everybody. On a little philosophical note, we have something which is known as a Sushumna Nadi, which runs down our spine, and this Nadi is supposed to contain all our life force energy. Around this Nadi are the two Nadis, which are the male and female, intertwined around it, the Ida and the Pingla. And it is said that when the Ida and Pingla are balanced, the life force energy in the Sushumna Nadi rises up powerfully. And that individual, when you see that individual who has actually balanced the right side and the left side of the brain, and you see that there is something magnetic about that individual. That's the man with the golden touch or the woman with the golden touch. And in my experience, I see that leaders who are right at the top have actually balanced their male and female side beautifully, their right and left brain beautifully. And how do we do that? We do that through balancing our external relationships first. Our personal relationships and our professional relationships. The message for the organizations are, pretending to be the same is not an answer anymore. This initiative has to be a top-down approach. It cannot be a window dressing of having done a tick mark to the diversity work that is to be done. So, actively teaching gender intelligence, bringing about an awareness of the gender intelligence, because we've clearly seen it's not policies only, it's not hiring only, it is definitely more than that. Inclusion, how the women feel in the workplace. So a lot of work to be done in that area. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing your profound and powerful thoughts. And your innate understanding of the genders was definitely very insightful. Most of us could relate to that. Our next guest, Mr. Ashu Malhotra, a senior corporate leader with 22 years of experience in human resource training and development and corporate governance. Mr. Malhotra is an MBA from Xavier's Institute of Social Service, an eminent scholar and a qualified human resource specialist. For the last 12 years, working in the capacity of Director Human Resource, President HR and Chief Human Resource Officer, with tremendous global exposure, having worked in Japan, China and France, he's handled large and complex roles, scaling up to a 15,000 employee base. He's worked for renowned multinationals and large Indian organizations, Dabur, Honda and Alcatel Lucent Limited, to name a few. At present, he's with Jabong.com as head HR.
Very good afternoon. It doesn't go well with me. To me, women empowerment is given. Okay? That's way of life. Things have really evolved. The way corporate world has moved, the way Jabong, for that matter, the industry in which I am, we have 40% of workforce is women. And that's by default, not by design. I'm a firm believer that, as you rightly said, Dr. Neera, that we are different. Men and women are absolutely different. And for that difference, they need to be respected for. And that's what we believe in. They bring a lot of diversity in the organization. As you rightly said, that we as men are more logical, and you people as women are more creative, I would say more emotional. And if you look at the research studies, it says that when you take any decisions which has very far-fetching results, it has to be a mix of 30% is logical and 70% is emotional. And that's bring to the fore the power of women, right? And in my organization, when I look back at my organization, we don't talk about women empowerment. We have a club, and we don't say by design women empowerment, because that's demeaning women. Because you guys are totally empowered. That energy lies within you, right? And surely you have some situations that requires different treatment, right? And so is the case with male part of the organization. So there's nothing favor being given by the organization that when you go to maternity leave and so on and so forth. That's the way we believe in. And my leadership team, the founders of the organization, the people who are the helm of the affairs, we personally believe when we walk the talk that you don't have to do anything extra. It doesn't call for. And as you rightly said that women don't leave for very petty issues like they have maternity leave or there's someone at the home to be taken care of. They are far more evolved. I'm being very honest. I'm saying from my heart, you guys are far more evolved. You guys are wonderful. The amount of, the value of bring to the table. In my team, my 70% of the staff is women, right? Not because I need to have gender diversity, and there's a mandate given to my MD that we need to have 70% of the workforce as women, but I see intrinsic value they bring to the table in terms of the emotions, when somebody say that in the corporate parlance that don't bring heart to the workplace, they say, no, let's speak logic, let's not bring heart to the workplace. That doesn't work. As I said that in the beginning, business is all about emotions. And you touched upon about employee engagement, right? If you look at that, employee engagement is all about emotions. You guys cannot be engaged if, as an organization, I don't take care of emotions. The emotion basically mean your belongingness, right? The pride you bring to the organization, your opinions, the way you're being looked at, the best place in the workplace. If you look at the Gallup Q12 methodology, right, is all about emotions. And in this context, let me be very, very candid and forthright that women play an extraordinary role, and I really mean it. Being HR head, I don't run any program. What we do, let me narrate and relate. What we do factually, real-time experience in Jabong, what we do, because we are an online e-commerce organization, and we cater to a lot of females. We are a fashion destination. What we do, something extra for the people to ensure that you come back to the corporate world, as you call as, you people take sabbatical, you take long leaves because of reasons beyond your control. We run different programs. We have different internship programs. We have different programs to upgrade and bring to the speed when they come back to the corporate world. Okay, not only in Jabong, but in different other organizations. That's one initiative we have taken. Because the situation demands that, not because I have to do something for women empowerment as a design. That's not the message I want to give. That's one thing we do. Also what we have done, we have a group of female who have joined hands together. They meet on a periodical basis and look at how they can work around and develop themselves as a team and contribute in different phases of the organization. Because we believe that they have a lot to bring to the table. Okay, and we do understand what we need to leverage from women workforce. And coming to the topic, the topic given to me is flexibility and diversity, hallmark of great employers. Flexibility is true not for you, only for female. Let me tell you that the way the world is evolving, I worked in Japan for a very long time. Because the scarcity of real estate, it comes at a very high cost. So you have no choice but to operate in a flexible situation. You have to operate from your home and so on and so forth. And that's the way the world is moving. Generation Y youngsters, the biggest perk if I have to attract talent, now we have a very big lab in Bangalore and we hire very high quality tech guys. If you have to attract those people, salary is no more the differentiator. Okay? The only differentiator is flexibility. Bring to your office your own device, BYOD. You look at various mobile applications. You operate from where you are. You don't need to be in the office. Okay? So flexibility in that context is very, very important. Because you can be very, very productive. You feel that there is nobody policing on you, you're not being monitored all the time. But what we monitor is in terms of a performance, okay? Let's go forward. Yeah? This one? Yeah, look at this. A great place to work for surely is you need to have a good combination on male and female, as you've spoken about. That's very, very important. But if you have to attract talent, get people on board, whether it's male or female, they look at 3 important dimensions. The trust you have in the organization, you believe this company is fair and ethical, you take pride in the organization that you are working for a good brand, and they believe in corporate governance and so on and so forth, and you enjoy when you come to the workplace. And in that regard, if you like 3 dimensions, flexibility to the workplace plays a very, very important part. As I said that, generation-wise, which is going to be about 70% of the workforce going forward, what they look at, that includes male and female both. They look at flexibility to the workplace, right? And that's how they want to look at, and that's how you can attract talent going forward. Job sharing, flexible timings, work from home arrangements, telecommunicating. The technology has advanced so much that you don't have to, call people to the office, and that suits a female more than male category of employees, and that's how it goes to help. In my organization, we don't have any such that you have to come in the morning, you have to punch card, you punch at 9 o'clock and leave at 5 o'clock. It doesn't work like that. We work on performance standards. We understand that for a person, that's how he is to perform. This is that he is being evaluated. So we have a lot of flexibility for the people, whether it's male or female. I'm not differentiating between male and female right here. So what we need to have, in the organization, especially for female associates, that we have the culture of respect and trust. The point you rightly said, female associates don't leave for very petty reasons. And that's the myth we have. They leave because there's something happening at the back home. It's not true. It's no more true any which ways. They leave because still we have male-dominated mindset, and we believe that they cannot do hard work, they can't do running around. But let me tell you that with my 22 years and I have realized in my last 10 years, the amount of value you bring to the table is second to none. Okay? What they want, surely, yes, I totally echo what you said, exactly what you said. You want respect. You want to have the feeling that you're equally wanted. And to that extent, to some extent, I would disagree with you, that it's within you as an individual, how you respect yourself, how you make a mark for yourself in the organization. Because the way the corporate world is evolving is absolutely performance driven. I don't care whether it's male or female, honestly. I don't care. And I don't want to talk about that. I just don't want to talk about that. So message to you people sitting here, youngsters, young ladies sitting here, the time has come to say we count. Time is here to say that we can contribute. And let me tell you that when in the corporate world, when you start working, what counts, what matters is your performance. So don't treat yourself something differently, because from very childhood we have been told that society is like that. So there are a lot of misconceptions and myths around, which makes us feel that we are not at par with some other gender. This is not true. So I firmly believe that if you give respect to yourself, people will give you respect. And you are no less. You are much, much better. And I don't believe in any structured programs which says that they need to be encouraged, because you have in it you. And the way the corporate world is evolving, I think I agree with you more than that, that is a business imperative. An absolutely business imperative. Look at my business, right? My business is all about creativity. We are the fashion destination, right? Mangoes, River Islands, and Dorothy Perkins and the world, the brand we deal with. It's all about creativity. So my business requires you people. You only can work in that situation. So look at the various options you have, and ensure that you get counted, and and the respect for you or for anybody comes from the way you perform, the way you manifest your behavior in the corporate world. Okay, I think there's some other, I don't want to talk about that. Surely, yes, when you have flexibility, it reduces absenteeism, productivity, and so on and so forth. That's given. Okay, any questions here? Or maybe we'll have questions after that, right? I have some video for you guys. Let's look at okay, last one. Okay. Let's have only one, yeah. Okay, leave that. Maybe we'll have Q&A, right?
Thank you, Ashu, for sharing your views and progressive thought and perspective. I think through the discussions in the session, it's clearly emerged that organizations are making a great effort to ensure that women that are working with them stay longer, reduced absenteeism, don't have reasons to move on and not come back to that organization, to increase retainership, and I think enhance the overall environment that the organization lends out to each and every employee. I think we have about 5 minutes for questions, so we can take 2 questions from the audience. We have a question here.
Can you hear me? Dr. Neera, this question is for you. Taking off from what Ashu said, that flexibility has become an essential factor.
Yes.
Regardless of age. You can be young, you can be my age.
Yeah.
The chart that you showed
Yeah.
between senior management positions and the flexibility.
Yes.
And you showed that in the Asia Pacific countries,
Yeah.
more senior managers, they are not influenced so much by flexibility. I think the reason for that is in the Asia Pacific countries there is more of a domestic head.
I agree.
Okay, so therefore they are not tuned to that kind of a requirement.
Yeah.
Now what happens is you need flexible hours when your children are growing up.
Yeah.
Now after when your child is 9 years old or 10 years old, then you can go at 9 and come at 5 and nobody's going to ask you any questions.
Correct.
So therefore, flexibility and the senior, there cannot be a perfect correlation between the two. Now what happens in Nordic countries, and which rather all men should understand, that when it becomes important in the first part of their life, the husband should essentially take care many of the household chores, like looking after the children, bathing the children, so that men and women have equal time to devote to their work.
Absolutely.
And that is why probably in the Nordic countries, the chart which you have shown, flexibility doesn't influence. Flexibility is for a different factor, like is what you said,
Yeah.
that you can be far away, you can have a traffic jam, so you can even work from home.
Correct.
So am I right in my conclusion?
Yeah, so what we are saying, I completely agree with the domestic help part of it, that in the Asian countries, because of the domestic help, women are able to, despite not having the flexi hours, still able to go for work. But however, when we look at the Nordic countries, we are saying that despite having the flexi hours in all the facilities, women have not risen up as much as in the Asia Pacific. So that shows that though policies are important, flexi hours are important, but it's not the only thing. And about that men being contributing, that's a huge factor. So even now, the primary caretaker is the woman. Though men protest and say now we are taking equal responsibility, but one big indicator is the parent-teacher meetings. You will still see more mothers there than fathers. If a child falls sick, it will still be the mother who's taking a leave. The world will be definitely better placed both economically and personally if more men begin to take part in the household activities and more women can go out and express their potential. So there's an ad, I think, which has been going around, a very controversial ad actually, where the woman, the wife is the boss. And she says, no, you have to stay late. If you've seen that ad of the smartphone. And then at home she goes back and cooks the food and asks him that I'm waiting for you for dinner. So, but the controversy is that it still shows that the woman is still the one who's preparing the food at the home. Yeah. Yeah. So we have a journey to make to that. Things are changing very fast, but it's still a little way to go.
Thank you, Dr. Neera. Any more questions from the audience, please? We have a question there.
My questions for Mr. Malhotra and Mr. Sinha. You run HR organizations, and the potential of women at the workplace, and the business imperative and all these things. But we do have, as HR people, time constraints, and we have cost constraints as well. So for every lady that steps down or steps out because she needs flexibility, there are about 10 or maybe more men who don't need that flexibility and are willing to compromise on work-life balance, etc., etc. So how do you make sure that the business imperative in that situation works?
So, as he rightly said, that women are not only leaving because they are not getting the flexibility, first of all. And second, which I said when I was presenting, that gender diversity cannot be run only by the recruitment team. It has to be run by the management. And with the importance and with the imperative being there, all of us as an organization have to make a concerted effort into maintaining this diversity. So like Ashu's business demands that, and I'm sure today most of the businesses demand that. There is no specific and all-male business or all-female business as such. So it's an imperative where you have to maintain the balance. And I spoke about a leaking pipeline, which is when you have a woman leaving in, there'll be more male contenders to take up the job. And it's also an HR controversy that when you are making a person wait because you're trying to maintain a diversity is a wrong HR practice from that perspective. But as Ashu rightly said, the women are not leaving because they are not getting flexibility. Probably they are not, in certain organizations, they do not feel an inclusive behavior in terms of recognition and pride and the enjoyment at work from that perspective. So you have to strike a balance between the two and then make a concerted effort to have a proper gender diversity. Ashu, you can...
I would like to add one point here. We need to move from the mindset that if you are physically present, you are working. That's the biggest myth we have. Okay? Companies are moving to an ecosystem where you measure a person's performance. Physical presence is not required. Please understand that. India as a country has also evolved. In that context, if any male or female is not in the office for any reason, but they're accountable to the performance and they're being evaluated based on that, how does it matter? How does it matter? So things have changed. Things are changing. Basically, with coming technology, you can really look at how the people are performing, and they may not be in the office. Doesn't matter. So in that regard, the women are really getting empowered, and anybody who doesn't need to come to the office, they're really enjoying their work. Because flexibility is the way forward. You take it or leave it. That's the way. And that's a skill set we have to really harness and develop. You will be only evaluated based on performance. Okay?
So we've run out of time now, and however much we would like to continue with the questions. But I think I'll take this opportunity to thank all our panelists today. It was really nice. You've taken time out of your busy schedule and ensured you came here and discussed and shared with all of us. Thank you so much.